So one of our first speakers today will be a lead investing specialist in the Polygon, and she will be accompanied by one of the chief. She will be accompanied by the chief blockchain officer from the BlockCzech, Vasek Pavlin. So what time is it right now? Yeah, it's 3:15. Are they ready? Can we connect them?
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're audible to me.
We can hear you guys.
Great.
That's perfect. Glad to hear that. Welcome, everyone, to the event. Really sorry I can't be there physically, but the whole household got COVID this week, and I know we are super uncool because COVID is over. Yeah, but that's just how we roll.
Didn't we cancel COVID, Vasek? Didn't we cancel COVID like a few months ago?
I had some reserves, like UST and Luna, they had some reserves. I had some other reserves. Okay, so my name is Vasek Pavlin. I work for BlockCzech, which is the company that organizes this event. I'm really glad you're all here. We have some people on the stream, we have some people physically on the venue. And I've connected with Ash from Polygon, who is, wow, that's a nice effect, who is an investment lead over there. And I've asked her, can you tell us something about how Polygon invests, how they invest into gaming, what is the general strategy there, what are the gaps and things like that. So we agreed that we will do it like as a Q&A session, where I'll ask, she'll answer. I have 7 questions that I think is enough for the time. We need more questions. I'm pretty sure we will come up with more questions. And then you can also obviously ask, and then I'll try to catch the questions in the chat and ask them if we have time. So let's go straight in. So Ash, please introduce yourself and tell us maybe in more detail than I did, what do you do and what is your role at Polygon?
First of all, thanks everyone. Thanks Vasek, everybody else for inviting me here to speak today. I'm really sorry I can't be there in person, but I think this is the virtual hybrid world we live in. So just to kind of give a quick introduction about myself, I'm a former banker. I was working in global markets at Citibank for a couple of years, where I kind of picked up the crypto bug. I mean, so much so that the Christmas bonus that I received my very first year, right after graduation, I invested entirely in crypto. This was almost 5 years ago now. So I've been a crypto trader on and off since then. I self-learned coding a little bit to kind of pick up LSTM model prior to DeFi Summer, actually, back in 2019. And since then, I also started working in VC. So I started working in emerging tech VC, looking into health tech, wellness, climate tech, EV mobility kind of startups, while at the same time running my own fund after I left Citi, where I was basically looking at every single thing in Web 2 and Web 3. We made a couple of pretty fantastic investments, had a couple of pretty fantastic exits as well. And I think that's where I kind of pivoted from being just a crypto trader into investing at an early stage in Web3 startups, of course, at a global level. So that is basically what I've been doing for the last few years. And I just decided to combine everything, the crypto trading aspect, investing in startups and investing in Web3 startups per se. And now I'm the investment lead at Polygon. We basically are very sector agnostic early stage investors in Web3. So we look at everything from NFT, gaming, Metavers, DeFi, infrastructure, middleware, DAOs, just name it, right? So we've literally looked at every single sector within Web3. And we are completely bent on focusing high quality founders, backing high quality ideas that are trying to raise funds to start their journey in the Web3 landscape. So that's pretty much what we do at Polygon as well.
Oh, that sounds awesome, and congratulations for your good exits.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good, and we know probably like everyone that is looking at blockchain and crypto knows about Polygon. You can, if you want to, you can introduce Polygon itself, if just in case someone doesn't know what is it about, that it's not just a VC or that it's not just a crypto project, that it's something potentially better or more.
Right. So basically, Polygon is a leading L2, which is basically a platform for Ethereum scaling and infrastructure development. We have a growing suite of products, basically end to end, so that the developers can easily access all of the major scaling and infra solutions to help enable their business forward. So we have typical L2 solution like ZK rollups, etc. We also have like a sidechain, proper sidechain. We have like a hybrid solution. We have enterprise solutions as well. We have data availability solution, which is Polygon Avail, and like so many other solutions as well. Happy to go into a little bit of depth if we have a lot of developers in the audience today. But broadly speaking, Polygon scaling solutions have been widespread with 19,000 plus dApps now being hosted. I think 1.6 billion plus was the recent number that I came across, was the total transactions being processed. And I think the every other number has just been kind of taking off from there in terms of unique user addresses, in terms of assets secured, etc. So that is basically what we sort of specifically do at Polygon, and we are basically focused on building the next layer of founders, be it from gaming, from any other vertical within Web3, that will actually create an impact in the Web3 ecosystem, let's say 5-10 years down the line.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I really like, I think it's on Polygon website directly that says it's Internet of Blockchains.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So we are also infamously, like sort of famously actually called AWS of Web3. So we are an internet of blockchains, just kind of enabling, we are like the enabling layer, so to speak.
okay, that's awesome. So, if we go back to the topic, so my first kind of more specific question about gaming. Can you give us some insight into how Polygon is positioning itself in the gaming industry?
Sure. So I think gaming has been one of the sort of key focus areas for Polygon for a very, very long time now. So much so that I think almost a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, we launched Polygon Studios, which is basically our separate internal dedicated arm for NFT gaming and Metaverse. Kind of project. So any founder that is looking to build on Polygon, already building on Polygon, is free to connect with studios for a whole suite of services that they can provide. From a perspective of what Polygon wants to do in gaming, we want to basically become the global leader in blockchain tech adoption by game developers, right? And we feel that game developers are still very sort of, like there's a dearth for game developers globally. And we want to kind of encourage more devs to get into the gaming space because we see a lot of potential in gaming from a Web3 perspective. So, you can come in and you can utilize the various tech products that I mentioned. Something like, sort of a couple of tech solutions we've recently launched as well, where let's say games can build on top of their private chains. So that is the kind of full stack facility that we are trying to provide, gaming at large from a Polygon perspective. And that's where we want to basically be, let's say, the Web3 go-to gaming solution for every single developer in the near future.
Okay, okay. No, that's great. And I've heard that, read that you snatched someone from YouTube to lead the Polygon Studios, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, snatched is a wrong word. I would say attracted. So, yeah, so Ryan Wyatt, who was the global head of gaming at YouTube, is now the CEO of Polygon Studios. The COO is Mike Blank, who spent 19 years at EA Games as well. So we have like a very, very competent team. Even at like a VP level, we have like some very incredible. I like to call it like Web2 talent that has now migrated to Web3, simply because of I think the vision that they also hold is very similar to what we in general sort of relatively speaking, Web3 natives have had for a while. That
Mhm,
Web3 is definitely going to work alongside Web2, but it is
mhm.
going to be the next big thing in specifically in gaming.
Okay, it sounds good. Sounds good. So I'll go to the next question then. So what are the major projects or companies that Polygon is partnering with in the gaming space, and how is Polygon helping them? Obviously, you said you basically the Polygon Studios is there to provide various services. Maybe not even just Polygon Studios, but in general, like who is Polygon partnering with, and how can you help the companies? Because we probably have a lot of founders here as well, so it's going to be interesting if
Right,
someone
right.
picks up.
So, actually, the sort of the projects that are there in our portfolio, as well as a bunch of them who've not yet announced the fact that maybe we are investing in them or we are working with them. So that's why I can't really name sort of them because we are strictly under NDAs. But just to give you an overview landscape, we are connected with major AAA studios. Plus, basically because of the network and the fact that we've been operational in Web3 gaming for the last few years, we are also connected with a lot of ex AAA studios gaming developers who are now moving out to create their own blockchain games. So that way we basically have that inner door from the very get go. In fact, majority of the bigger gaming VCs are now seeing majority, like about 70-80% of gaming pitches that include Web3 components in some capacity. That means that any gaming startup that is getting pitched in the world right now, one out of two would at least have some sort of a Web3 component in some capacity. So the adoption, obviously, clearly has been very massive across the spectrum, especially, of course, I'm just talking about the AAA, gaming studios right now. Um, Coming to the kind of the support that we provide, we do have this vision that of course we want to support builders, but we also have these internal facilities which operate in silos, where we know that all of these individual services can be value adds to the the end builder who's building, let's say, a gaming company in the Web3 ecosystem. So we provide these kind of end-to-end services where we help in sort of basics of game design, gameplay. We help in strategy, how they exactly can leverage their entire distribution, their GTM, their go-to-market strategy, so on and so forth. We also provide support on the tokenomic side of things, because internally, I mean, Polygon is like a gigantic organization now. We have some 400 plus people around the world. So we have a bunch of very good tokenomics experts in-house, where we can help you guide, we can help advise, etc. And all of this is sort of we like to see it as FOC. It's not like we are charging any consulting fees for this. We also help with different kind of integrations across chains if you want to kind of go from sort of one EVM compatible to another, even if you want to create bridges, etc. Happy to facilitate that. Next, I think we have a very, very solid marketing team. So we have sort of a global PR team, like a global marketing team, a communications team. All of them can leverage your brand strategy, your vision, something as basic as giving advice on your logo, as well as helping you put out the word. Let's say when you're launching, when you're beta testing, you need some support in terms of the right kind of partnerships. There are so many different, sort of not to name any, but football fantasy startups that are working with us, and we've helped them get the right kind of intros in the Web2 world as well. Because the recent fundraise that we did for $500 million, we have the backing of some of the best investors in the world, and they are happy to kind of support us as well. So through second and third level connections, we are able to facilitate those business introductions that can help you achieve the kind of partnerships you need in the longer run to actually sort of scale your business and game in general. Then apart from that, we have very solid community managers internally, which is the new very trendy profession in the Web3 landscape. So community engagement, of course, everybody knows is incredibly important, especially if you have some sort of a social token component, in your game as well. And I think in general, the ecosystem support also, anything that you need, it's basically a demand supply model. This is the broad level supply that we have been giving majority of the startups that have reached out to us. But at the same time, if there's anything specific that you would need help on, we can kind of facilitate that. So that ecosystem support is something we can provide, because we have 19,000 dApps building on us. There are possible crossovers in terms of business support that you can leverage, and we can make those introductions from our portfolio, be it from the ventures side or the entire Polygon portfolio at large. So I think that's basically where we feel that co-building is our narrative. We love to build with the game developers and the game designers, but at the same time we want to kind of have that visibility also, where we want more and more game developers to come and build on Polygon.
Okay. There's definitely a large scale of operations that you can help with. And I mean, yeah, Polygon is a large company now. It's visible in various branches and various topics that you cover on Twitter and whatnot. So my next question actually goes quite specifically to gaming, GameFi, Metavers. Do you see any trends in those industries and some trends that will be worth watching this year, 2022? We now have a crash of everything upon us, so the trends are gonna change probably. But as we know, like bear markets are great for building. So what should we look at? Who is building something interesting, or what are the trends that we should be watching so that we are ready for the next bull market as a companies that are gonna build something, and as an investors that are gonna buy some tokens of those companies.
Absolutely. So I think, like you correctly mentioned, bear markets are great for building, but I also like to see them as great for innovation and sort of hit and trial at some level. Just kind of researching what would work, what would not work, innovating your product a little bit, trying to stand apart in the market, right? So from I think our perspective, we are not very bullish on sort of play to earn currently. From a perspective of maybe wanting more and more play and earn kind of games to actually come forward. That is something that we have like a very good lookout on. I think again from like a guild's perspective, we are not sort of incredibly bullish, but I think in general GameFi with like a proper utility token is something that we are very excited about, because I think gaming has been around for a while, right? It's not like DAO tooling, for example, that has seen immense amount of traction the last 6-7 months. Gaming has been sort of live for like 2-3 years. So as a sector, I think it has started maturing. So when maturity actually hits, there are certain types of fundamentals that need to exist, and innovation alone, creativity alone, is not really something that is tangible enough for us to back. Strictly speaking, from like an investments point of view. So we feel that obviously initially, like for example, um, when everything was like X to earn, right? So back in Web 2, like everything was Uber for X, or sort of Stripe for X. It's basically that same segment that is kind of slowing down now. We are seeing a better signal to noise ratio now. Simply because we are seeing higher quality of games, as well as sort of models behind those games, the kind of distribution that they are planning, even from like the V1 stage, they have complete clarity on their tokenomics, their roadmap, when exactly they'll do their token generation events, so on and so forth. So I think that relative clarity, number one, is very important. Number two, play and earn, I think, is a very, very exciting segment, and anything X and earn, basically, walk and earn, learn and earn, something of that sort, is very, very exciting currently within gaming. And I think in metaverse in general, we haven't really invested, like strictly speaking from like an investments point of view, we've not invested in a large number of metaverse players, but the ones that we have invested in, they are doing like incredibly well. So I think from that perspective, also having a clear cut vision of what exactly your metaverse play is all about, and at the same time using some sort of a strong utility token that will help you create that business model, is something that can be very exciting within this year. And I think apart from gaming also, we are seeing a lot of um, these kind of NFT DeFi crossovers, a little bit of gaming and DeFi crossovers. That is just like pretty exciting to watch out for. So those are relatively newer trends that are emerging, but like not a lot has been sort of seen there in terms of a precedence being set up. So I think that's a good space if somebody really wants to get into gaming and wants to innovate a little bit about what's happening currently in the market.
Okay. My next question there was basically asking what gaps do you see in what people are currently building on blockchain? So like what's missing? You partially answered that in
Yeah.
this answer, because you said something like that we are moving from the pure creativity to actually like knowing what we are doing first and then actually executing on it. Is there anything else you would like to add on the like what is missing, the gaps in what is being built and how it's being built?
I think definitely that's actually a very good question. I think in terms of gaps that I'm seeing currently getting filled up, like I mentioned, also is having like a clarity on what exactly your longer term vision is. Creating a game, spending like a year, 2 years, creating that one game, and then not knowing how exactly you can monetize it, how you can, sort of maybe like sustain it. Because I think in gaming in general, we are seeing a lot of these very high quality gameplays that are coming out. We are seeing very easy sort of transition from, let's say, 0 to 10,000 monthly active users, and then going from 10,000 to 20,000 is becoming like a very big challenge, just giving like crass numbers. And the reason that is because in gaming in general, there are a lot of early adopters, And those early adopters are very high quality users who play multiple games, right? They're not restricting themselves to one or two games. So from that perspective, retaining those gamers becomes a very big challenge, which is why that number starts falling. And every single new user you actually onboard just keeps on adding to that same 10,000 monthly active users. So having that clarity on how exactly you will differentiate your GTM, right? The product differentiation is, of course, I think a lot of people are taking care of that, but the GTM and the distribution is something that really needs to be focused on. And I think apart from that, also a lot of different apart from gaming, there are a lot of different infra players that we are also seeing that are trying to do something for the NFT and gaming space. So like, NFT verification, some sort of fraud verification, API 3, which is a very simple tool to create, right? But it is very high value on existing products, on an existing ideas and companies. So I think those are the different kind of smaller players also that are gaining a lot of traction. And I think rightly so, because when you're building like a full stack game, you can't be expected to build every single thing from day one. So it's basically the same logic as B2B enterprise SaaS. So why every single company doesn't need to build the same exact tool in-house, right? Imagine, let's say, imagine we are on Zoom, right? Not every single company would create their own video calling software. We are using Zoom, which is basically at the end of the day a SaaS offering. So from that perspective, there are a lot of these smaller things that you can build out in the gaming landscape that are still, I would say, like, relative white spaces for us, and we are very bullish on any kind of players that are doing something similar.
That makes a great sense, because I've been in an infrastructure company, basically building Kubernetes and infrastructure for the businesses, the enterprises, right, before. And that's definitely something that makes a lot of sense, because if you want to focus on building your game, you can't focus on building the infrastructure. You're gonna go to AWS, you're gonna go to other providers for the general stuff like your backends and everything. But then what do you do with free if there is nothing? So if anyone is listening, like, think about what everyone needs and then build it, and then go to Polygon maybe to get funds and promotion.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And just to add here, I've seen a lot of high quality founders, and this has been like a trend for the last 4 5 years, right? Because of the way startup and technology has been taking over the world. A lot of these high quality founders come to me and they say that, oh, we are playing around with 3 4 ideas, right? And they're not able to see which one has the best, let's say, potential to get a proof of concept to ultimately achieve like a product market fit. And they eventually, sort of force themselves into one of the ideas they had. Instead of that, maybe just research, maybe play around every single product that you can think of. If you're really passionate about Web3, maybe your skill set, let's say you're a Solidity developer, your skill set is in line with Web3, then in that case, why don't you go and play every single game? Why don't you go and check out every single NFT marketplace, all of these different verticals, check out the products, go through them, think of yourself as a user, and think of what you need to improve this entire UI, for example. Or think of yourself as the founder and think, how can exactly I make this product better from a business point of view, maybe in terms of monetization, maybe in terms of scaling. And those are the smaller tools that you can focus on and ultimately get acquired as well, right? That is also a possibility. So I think it's just a good idea, if you're a very sort of passionate person all about founding your own company, why don't you go and look for ideas instead of just forcing ideas that you've had or heard of, and trying to replicate.
No, that's great advice, I think. Thank you very much for that. So we are getting close to our time slot. So if anyone has any questions, please post them in the chat. The chat, I think, is on the LinkedIn. I don't know if it also is coming from YouTube. I'm not sure about that, but it's definitely coming from LinkedIn. So go to the LinkedIn, post questions, and I'll try to catch some of them. So my last question, probably, because we are not going to cover more if we get some questions from the audience, is what about DAOs? We've heard you mention DAOs and the tools for building DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations. How are they important, and if they are important for future of gaming? Is there anything that you see that may change gaming, like from the DAO and community and governance perspective?
Yeah, I think definitely. So majority of the DAOs that currently exist in the market, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are incredibly relevant, especially for something like a AAA studio. It's always hard to define, how that specific DAO can come and help support the ecosystem, because that entire that list of members could be populated with very heterogeneous experiences as well. So they might not sort of concur on every single recommendation that them as an organization would want to make. But at the same time, a DAO at the end of the day is what it is: a human organization, right? Basically an experience based on the need for agreement between all of the participants and the members of that DAO. Even if not always present in DAOs, there's a possibility of building value with a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down dynamic, right? Where contributors and every other sort of like companies coming in and then sort of kind of instigating this, or otherwise you can attract the right kind of participants at the bottom level so that they will be inclined to support a certain specific type of game, so that it kind of goes bottom up. So how can all of this translate into supporting games is a very interesting question, because communities can be much more involved, right? Who feel like they're part of the project that is basically being built out as a game. They also, because obviously it's such a large network, they have the ability to research and attract more participants, more gamers, so on and so forth, to help increase the traction, at least at an initial level where you're, let's say, beta testing your product, and then you can improve it based on the kind of feedback that you're receiving. That would result in, let's say, creating new value for the game, and of course themselves, because them as a DAO would also kind of start doing well. I think allowing new forms of interaction between these kind of gaming companies, generally, which are sort of like managed in a more of a top-down approach, and then with the community, which is at like a bottom-up approach, right? So having some sort of synergies in the middle could be a very interesting play if we see DAOs that are specifically dedicated to, let's say, one gaming company, one NFT engine, one metaverse play, so on and so forth. I think at the end of the day, you need like these participants and contributors to become like active supporters of the game, allowing them to, let's say, earn something from their business. Could be some sort of financial incentive that can be kind of plugged in using some sort of a token or some sort of a reputation, sort of like a mode where people can go and monetize. And I think, of course, I think once you have like so many different people also, let's say you start scaling up that DAO, you have so many different variety of people that can give you like these kind of this kind of access to like community talent, and other really highly skilled collaborators who can become an integral part of the game. So I think there are some softer aspects where DAOs and games can work together, but currently I'm not seeing any specific DAO that's dedicatedly working for the sort of the boosting of, let's say, a AAA studio, because I think there's some sort of disconnect in that kind of a model.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's another kind of advice to the founders, like if you about DAOs and you really like the idea and you're thinking about gaming, maybe try to figure out how to bridge that gap there as well. So we got actually 3 questions. I'll start with the middle one. Describe to us some very exciting game being developed on Polygon. I don't know if you can say that because you already said it. You can't really talk about not non-public partnership. So if you want to comment on that.
Okay, so basically we have, I think one of them is already public, so I'll just talk a little bit about that, but not in too much detail. So there's this sort of one player called Laguna Games that's building on Polygon. We are very excited about them. They've been doing incredibly well. They have 3 titles. They have WB Games, they have Crypto Unicorns, and Gods of Olympus. All 3 are sort of very exciting. I've played them. Trust me, they are absolutely amazing. And I think that is like a pretty exciting token-based gaming studio that you can check out for yourself and play their games as well.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for a suggestion. Then something that I'm really curious about. Many game developers today make revenue from ads monetization. How do you think this might change with the use of Web3 technologies?
Yeah, so I think like I mentioned this earlier as well, you can have like a utility token, which is entirely dedicated on supporting what exactly is being built in the game. So there are different models that you can kind of take up, and ads and advertisements and like sort of marketing in general is not the only source of revenue in Web3. That is of course a possibility, not denying that at all. But because of the fact that we are entirely decentralized, we are not collecting data. Any of the companies in Web3 are not collecting data and using targeted advertisements to attract people. So from that perspective, you can always do like a token You can do that at a later stage as well once your game starts getting enough traction, and then you can list yourself on an OTC market where you can make good amount of funds as well. Apart from that, you can always do like NFT drops. You can make, you can enable interoperability of those NFTs across games if you're working in one studio. There's just so many different ways like you can actually monetize in the Web3 ecosystem when it comes to gaming.
Awesome. Since you mentioned NFTs so quickly, does Polygon have any strategy for 3D fashion for NFTs?
Oh yes. So basically, we are working on something pretty exciting. We would love to have like these bigger brands. We have a lot of, again, like I'm not going to reveal them, but like some of the tier one, sort of
Well,
fashion brands globally that are working
that is, I think,
on.
public. It's Gucci, right?
I'm sorry.
One that is public is Gucci. I
Yeah,
think Gucci.
Gucci is public, and I think BNG is also public. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, yeah, so basically, they are working very closely with us, and we have a very sort of internally clear strategy that we want to kind of facilitate those kind of partnerships further. We are currently in the process of figuring out how exactly we want to do that. Do we just want to kind of do like a metaverse play? Do we want to do something further? Those are internal sort of confidential strategy discussions that keep happening, and we are extremely excited about working with third-party fashion brands. I think that is one of our very big focus areas as well.
For sure. So we are out of time. I don't know if we have time for the last question or if we should stop right now to let everyone take a break before the next speaker. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
we
I'll
can
just.
ask if there are some questions from the live audience here.
Okay, fair enough.
Are there any questions to Ash from the audience, guys? Don't be shy. It's all right. No? Okay, maybe I have one last question. So you briefly touched upon it during your presentation regarding the X to earn model. So I was wondering, like, what are your thoughts about the X to earn models, and perhaps has there been any examples of the products that has not been executing this very well, and are there any ideas like or general consensus in the Polygon on how founders should be proceeding with the XR model to kind of reward their player base, but also keep their product like sustainable, financially sustainable, and do not harm like the user base with the people who are actually coming not to use the product, but instead just to earn some money and kind of
Yeah.
inflate the project as well. So what are your thoughts?
Right. So I think, yeah, that's a great question. So I think X2 Earn, I was incredibly bullish on, to be honest, for a very, very long time. And I think something like a step in when it came out initially was very exciting because I feel that, incentivizing people to walk more. I have friends who've actually ditched their sort of, like bicycles and, like bikes and cars just to kind of walk a little bit more. But and obviously because of the incentive mechanism that Stepan had. But again, I think in general, strictly speaking from a business point of view now, I don't see sustainability in the X2 One model, right? Because of course it's a great way of building that community. It is fantastic to actually incentivize people to do healthier things, and of course like sort of giving them financial incentives in the interim. But at the same time, I don't see sustainability. So at the end of the day, like I mentioned, even the play and earn model, so it needs to be X and earn is just my personal opinion. I think internally I've not really discussed with everybody, but I think at a personal level, I'm very clear that an X and earn model would work better, simply because that is giving you twofold sort of incentives. One is to definitely play more, enjoy the gameplay, see it as like a lucrative pastime. You can even see it as a sort of potential career, and then at the same time you're earning on top of it. It's not that you're incentivized to play a game only to earn, right? Because that incentive mechanism that has would have like adverse effects as well at some level, because people would start looking at that as like some sort of like only way of making money and not improving while doing the same thing, right? So that's why even some games, I'm not going to name them, but some games that are sort of play to earn, they have very poor gameplay, right? At the end of the day, that's because they've not put in that kind of effort to improve it, because they know their target market is not going to care much about the gameplay. So that is where I feel that the incentives get sort of adversely impacting the end audience. And that's why I think I'm very bullish on the X and earn space. Walk in on, for example, is something that's very exciting right now after Steppen. And there is one company that we've recently invested in as well that is more focused on the health impacts of the walking and the steps that everybody is taking, as opposed to just counting steps and giving them funds, right? So that is incentivizing them to actually use the health aspect and the stepping aspect of people in the right ethical way, is what I like to see it. So I think that's basically something that we are very bullish on.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Maybe one last question from our side. So, is there any general consensus in Polygon regarding how decentralized projects should be? Right, like as a crypto community, as a blockchain community, we're kind of incentivized, or we have a tendency to decentralize everything around the project, which sometimes might harm like the user experience. Sometimes people, they do not really care, if they own their personal data, or if the project is actually decentralized, or if there's like a certain entity that controls the development. So is there some good practices that you have heard, or some good ratios on execution from the decentralization side?
That's a very interesting question. Never really thought about it. Pretty interesting. I can definitely discuss it internally in one of our next meetings as well. From the business side. But I think decentralization. So I think how does Web3 actually sort of come into the picture, right? Exactly, what is Web3? That is basically combining. Let's say Web 1 was what, late 90s till early 2000s. It was all about open protocols that were entirely decentralized and community governed, right? Most of the value is accrued to the users as well as the builders. While Web 2 in the last 15, 17 years is more about siloed, centralized services, entirely siloed, centralized services, let me put it that way, run by like these gigantic corporations like FANG. And that is, of course, great because that is monetizing the technology that was created 30 years ago. But now I think Web3 is all about combining this ethos of decentralization and community governance with this advanced functionality of monetization that when it comes to Web 2. So Web 3 needs to be an internet platform. Basically, like, all the companies need to be on a platform where builders and the users are the owners, right? And that's where I'm very sure that I think everybody in Polygon would also agree that majority of the, let's say, the monetization or the company's value needs to be with the end user of the game, or basically with the builder if it is, let's say an infra player or a business player, where you can kind of orchestrate this entire monetization using tokens. I think that's the way we see it, but it's just very difficult to kind of pinpoint what should be the ratio, because I think that ratio would vary business to business, and even within sub verticals. Let's say within gaming, you look at GameFi, or you look at NFTs, etc. It needs to vary from one to the other depending entirely on the kind of business they are running. But still, at the same time, majority needs to be owned by the users and the builders.
Great, great. Thank you very much. One last time, guys. Are there any final question from the crowd? Any final question from the LinkedIn chat, Vasek?
We only have one more from LinkedIn, I think, and that was what do you see as the biggest obstacles in mass adoption to crypto market today from a retail user perspective?
Oh my God, yes. This is something that I spoke
Only
about for 20 minutes yesterday on Twitter Spaces as well, because of all of the different spaces I was doing regarding, Luna and Tether and UST and everything. I think the biggest problem right now, there are two problems. One is, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, which needs to be bridged ASAP. And I think that a large number of edtech companies can actually come in and help out here. It's not about just doing courses, right? You can do like content based on reels. I'm very sure that it would take a 30-second reel max for somebody to understand what exactly is the fundamental meaning of blockchain. So I think until unless people know that, they will only see crypto as like a, I'm so sorry, like there's a power cut. They can only see crypto as like a potential gambling sort of an atmosphere. That is where I think that is one knowledge gap that needs to be really bridged properly. The other one would be, I think, this level of fear. So whenever markets move, be it equities, be it commodities, currencies, etc., they would always basically be very clearly, sort of explained by the experts, and then the fear in the masses goes down, especially the people who've actually, taken like a big loss as well. But when it comes to crypto, because of, again, number one, number two results in more fear for the newer entrants, and that results in this domino effect that I've been observing, where people, after just seeing two crashes, they are like, oh my God, I'm never going to enter crypto, right? Even people who started making money just by crypto gambling because they did not understand the fundamental meaning of cryptocurrency and blockchain, because of those kind of people also, they would also exit the market. So I think, there's this partner at Dragonfly, who said this very well, that you really don't know what you don't know, right? So don't assume that you already know it, because if you do that, you can never be passionate about it. And if you can't be passionate about it, you can't survive in it for a longer term. And that's something that has been like an advice given to traders for decades as well. So I think for anybody to understand and enter from a retail investor point of view, you need to first understand the basics. You need to start playing Web3 games. Play the games where you think you would want to buy the token, right? Use the platforms, understand what Bitcoin is doing, where exactly Bitcoin is used, understand the potential of Ethereum, understand what L2s are doing, and only then go and invest, because this is an investment. You need to understand fundamentals, and you need to do some level of analysis prior to getting into, like, like a crypto investing market. It's not like you can just go and buy mutual funds and be like, yeah, okay, I'm an equity investor. You can't do that with crypto.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ash. We really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing at Polygon. So thank you very much for your time. Can we get a round of applause for Ash?
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Lovely being here. Please feel free to DM me. I think there were a couple of questions asking my full name. It's Aashima Arora with a double A at the beginning. Please feel free to DM me if you're building on Polygon, if you want to enter Web3, anything to do with Web3, happy to be there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Enjoy, everyone over there.
Thank you, Vasek. Thank you, too. All right, guys. So that was our first speaker. Before the second speaker, we still have 5 minutes. So in the meantime, feel free to grab a snack right there, or if you want to refill your drink, you can always do it. We have a buffet right there. We'll have a second speaker in just a few minutes. Thank you.